Live from Orlando, Florida, it's theCUBE, covering PentahoWorld 2017. Brought to you by Hitachi Vantara.
Welcome to day 2 of theCUBE's live coverage of PentahoWorld, brought to you by Hitachi Vantara. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight, along with my co-host, Dave Vellante. We're joined by Robert Walsh. He is the Technical Director, Enterprise Business Intelligence at ZeniMax. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, good morning.
See you.
So we're here, I should say congratulations is in order, because your company, ZeniMax, has been awarded the Pentaho Excellence Award for the Big Data category. I want to talk about the award, but first tell us a little bit about ZeniMax.
Sure, so the company itself, so most people know us by the games versus the company corporate name. So we make a lot of games. We're the 3rd biggest company for gaming in America. And we make a lot of games such as Quake, Fallout, Skyrim, Doom. We have a game launching this week called Wolfenstein. And so most people know us by the games versus the corporate entity, which is ZeniMax Media.
Okay. And as you said, you're the 3rd largest gaming company in the country. So tell us what you do there.
So myself and my team, we are primarily responsible for the ingestion and the evaluation of all the data from the organization. That includes really 2 main buckets. So very simplistically, we have the business world, so the traditional money, users, demographics, people, sales. Also, on the other side, we have the game. That's where a lot of people see the fun in what we do, such as what people are doing in the game, where in the game they're doing it, and why they're doing it. So we collect a lot of data on gameplay behavior based on our play base. And we try and fuse those 2 together for the single view of the customer.
And that data comes from, is it the console? Does it come from what's the data flow? Give us the...
Yeah, so we actually support many different platforms. So we have games on console, so Microsoft, Sony, PlayStation, and Xbox, as well as the PC platform, Macs, for example, Android and iOS. So we support all platforms.
Right.
So the big challenge that we have is trying to unify that ingestion of data across all these different platforms in a unified way to facilitate downstream the reporting that we do as a company.
Okay, so who, let's say you're playing the game on a Microsoft console, and whose data is that? Is it the user's data? Is it Microsoft's data? Is it ZeniMax data?
I see. So many games that we actually release have a server-side component. So most of our games are actually an online world. So if you disconnect today, people are still playing in that world.
Yeah.
They never end. So in that situation, we have all the servers that people connect to from their desktop, from their console. So not all, but most data we generate for the game comes from these servers that people connect to, and we own those.
Oh, okay.
Which simplifies greatly getting that data from the people.
So it's your data.
Exactly.
But what is the data telling you these days?
Oh wow, it depends on the game. I think people don't really realize what people do in games, what games have become. So we have one game right now called Elder Scrolls Online, and this year we released the ability to buy in-game homes. And you can buy furniture for your in-game homes, and you can furnish that, and people can come and visit, and you can buy items and weapons and pets and skins. And what's really interesting is, and part of the reason why we exist is look at patterns and trends based on how people interact with that environment. So for example, we'll see American play base buy very different items compared to, say, the European play base, based on social differences. And so that helps immensely for the people who continuously develop the game to add items and features that people want to see and want to leverage.
That is fascinating, that Americans and Europeans are buying different furniture for their online homes. So just give us some examples of the difference that you're seeing between these 2 groups.
So it's not just the homes, it applies to everything that they purchase as well. It's quite interesting. So when it comes to the Americans versus the Europeans, for example, what we find is Europeans prefer much more cosmetic, passive experiences, where the Americans are much more things that stand out, things that are, I'm trying to avoid stereotypes right now,
right,
but
exactly.
It is really
Americans like ostentatious stuff,
exactly.
We get it, yes.
And you know, the Europeans are a bit more passive in that regard, and so we do see that.
Understated, maybe.
Thank you, that's much better way of putting it. But games often have to be tweaked based on the environment. So, a different way of looking at it is a lot of companies in Korea, in Asia, release games in the West, and they will have to tweak the game completely before it releases in these environments, because players will behave differently and expect different things. And these games have become global. You know, we have people playing all over the world all at the same time. So how do you facilitate, how do you support these different users with different needs in this one environment? And that's, again, that's why BI has grown substantially in the gaming industry in the past 5-10 years.
Can you talk about the evolution of how you've been able to interact and essentially affect the user behavior or respond to that behavior? When you mentioned, BI, so go back 10 years, it was very reactive.
Right.
With not a lot of real-time stuff going on. Are you now in the position to affect the behavior in real time in a positive way?
We're very close to that, so we're not quite there yet. So yes, that's a very good point. So 5-10 years ago, most games were traditional boxes. You make a game, you get a box, Walmart, GameStop, and then you're finished. That's the relationship with the customer ends. Now we have this concept that's used often is games as a service. We provide an online environment, a service around the game, and people will play those games for weeks, months, if not years. And so the shift, as well as from a BI tech standpoint, is one item where we've been able to streamline the ingest process. So we're not real time, but we can be hourly, which is pretty responsive. But also the fact that these games have become these online environments has enabled us to get this information. 5 years ago when the game was on a box, on the shelf, there was no connective tissue between us and them to interact and facilitate. With the games now being online, we can leverage BI, we can be more real time, we can respond quicker, but it's also due to the fact that now games themselves have changed to facilitate that interaction.
Can you, Robert, paint a picture of the data pipeline? We started there with sort of the different devices, and you're bringing those in sort of as in a blender. But take us through the data pipeline and how you're ultimately embedding or operationalizing those analytics.
Sure. So we have, so the game data, as I mentioned, the game and the business information. Game data is most likely 95% of our total data footprint. We generate a lot more game information than we do business information. It's just due to how much we can track. We can do so. And so a lot of these games will generate various game events, game logs that we can ingest into a single data lake, and we use Amazon S3 for that. So but it's not just the game data, so we have databases for financial information, account users, and so we will ingest the game events as well as the databases into one single location. At that point, however, it's still very raw. It's still very basic. We enable the analysts to actually interact with that, and they can go in there and get their feet wet, but it's still very raw. The next step is really taking that raw information that is disjointed and separated, and unifying that into a single model that they can use in a much more performant way. In that first step, the analyst has the burden of a lot of the ETL work to manipulate the data, to transform it, to make it usable, which they can do, but it's still, they should be doing the analysis, not the engineering of the data. And so the progression from there into our warehouse is the next step of that pipeline. And so in there, we create these models and structures, and they often are born out of what the analysts are seeing and using in that initial data lake stage. So if they're repeating an analysis, if they're doing something on a regular basis, if the company wants something that's automated and auditable and productionized, then that's a great use case for promotion into our warehouse. And so you've got this initial staging layer. We have a warehouse where it's structured information, and we allow the analysts into both of those environments. So they can pick their poison in some respects. Structured data over here, raw and vast over here, based on their use case.
And what are the roles, just one more follow-up if I may, who are the people that are actually doing this work, building the models, cleaning the data, ensuring data quality? You got data scientists, you got quality engineers, you got data engineers, you got application developers. Can you describe the collaboration between those roles? Yeah,
so we as a BI organization, we have two main groups. We have our engineering team, that's the one I drive, and we have our reporting analysis team. Now we are really one single unit, we work as a team, but we separate those two functions. And so in my organization, we have two main groups. We have our big data team, which is doing that initial ingestion. We ingest billions of rows of data a day, terabytes of data a day. And so we have a team just dedicated to ingestion, standardization, and exposing that first stage. Then we have our second team, who are the warehouse engineers, who are actually here today somewhere. And they're the ones who are doing the modeling, the structuring. When I say modeling, I mean the data modeling, making the data usable and promoting that into the warehouse. On the reporting team, basically we are there to support them. We provide these tool sets to engage and let them do their work. And so in that team, they have a very split of people who do a lot of report development, visualization, data science. So a lot of the individuals there will do all of the three, two of the three, one of the three, but they do also have segmentation across, your day-to-day reporting, which has to function, as well as the more deep analysis for data science or statistical predictive analysis.
And that data warehouse is on-prem, is it in the cloud? It's
Good question. Everything that I talked about is all in the cloud. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we made the leap into the cloud. We drank the Kool-Aid, and so we are, as of Q2 next year, at the very latest, will be 100% cloud.
And the database infrastructure is Amazon, or is it?
Correct. We use Amazon for all the BI
Redshift,
platform.
or is it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that's where actually I want to go, because we're talking about the architecture, so I know you've mentioned Amazon Redshift. Cloudera is another one of your solutions provider, and of course we're here at PentahoWorld.
Right.
Pentaho, and you've described Pentaho as the glue. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So I've been talking about these two environments, these two worlds, the data lake, the data warehouse. They're both disparate in how they're developed, but it's really a single pipeline, as you said. And so how do we get data from this raw form into this model structure? And that's where Pentaho comes into play. That's the glue. It's the glue between these two environments. While they're conceptually very different, they provide a singular purpose, but we need a way to unify that pipeline. And so Pentaho we use very heavily to take this raw information, to transform it, ingest it, and model it into Redshift. And we can automate, we can schedule, we can provide error handling, and so it gives us a framework, and it's self-documenting to be able to track and understand from A to B, from raw to structured, how we do that, and again, Pentaho is allowing us to make that transition.
Pentaho 8 just came out yesterday.
it did.
What are you most excited about there? Do you see any changes? We keep hearing a lot about the ability to scale with PentahoWorld.
Exactly. So there's three things that really appealed to me actually on 8.0. So things that were missing that they've actually filled in with this release. So firstly, on the streaming component from earlier, the real-time piece, where we're looking at using Kafka and queuing for a lot of our ingestion purposes, and Pentaho releasing in this new version the mechanism to connect to that environment. That was good timing. We need that. Also, too, get into more technical detail, we do a lot of the logs that we ingest, data that we handle. We use Avro and Parquet. We try when we can. We use JSON, Avro, and Parquet. Pentaho can handle JSON today. Avro, Parquet are coming in 8.0. And then lastly, to your point you made as well, is where they're going with their system. They want to go into streaming, into all this information. It's very large, and it has to go big. And so they're adding, again, the ability to add worker nodes and scale horizontally their environment. And that's really a requirement before these other things can come into play. So those are things we'll be looking for. Our data lake can scale on demand, and our Redshift environment can scale on demand. Pentaho has not been able to, but with this release, it should be able to. And that was something that we've been hoping for quite some time.
I wonder if I could get your opinion on something, it's a little sort of futures-oriented. You have a choice as an organization. You could just roll your own, open source, best of breed open source tools and slog through that. And if you're an internet giant or a huge bank, you can do that.
Right.
You can take tooling like Pentaho, which is end-to-end data pipeline and dramatically simplifies things.
Yeah.
A lot of the cloud guys, Amazon, Microsoft, I guess to a certain extent Google, they're sort of picking off pieces of the value chain, and they're trying to come up with an as-a-service, fully integrated pipeline. Maybe not best of breed, but convenient.
Yeah.
How do you see that shaking out, and generally, and then specifically, is that a challenge for Pentaho from your standpoint?
So you're right. That's what they're trying to fill these gaps in their environment. To what Pentaho does and what they're offering, there's no comparison right now. They're not there yet. They're a long way away.
You're saying the cloud guys are not there.
They're
There's just Pentaho is just so much more functional.
They're not close.
Okay.
So that's the first step. However, though, what I've been finding in the cloud, there's lots of benefits from the ease of deployment, the scaling. You can remove a lot of DevOps support, DBA support. But the tools that they offer are right now still pretty bare bones. They're very generic. They have a use, a place, but are not designed for singular purpose. So we use Redshift is the only real piece of the pipeline that is a true Amazon product, but that came from a company called PowerXL 10 years ago. They licensed that from a separate company.
What a deal that was for Amazon.
Exactly. So we like it because of the functionality PowerXL put in many years ago. Now, they've developed upon that and made it easy to deploy, but that's the core reason behind it. Now, we use, for our big data environment, we use Databricks. Databricks is a cloud solution they deploy into Amazon. And so what I've been finding more and more is companies that are specialized in a certain application or function who have their product that support cloud deployment is, to me, where it's a sweet middle ground. So Penta will also talk about next year looking at Amazon deployment solutioning for their tool set. So to me, it's not really about going all Amazon, or let's use all Amazon products. They're cheap and cheerful, we can make it work. We can hire 10 engineers and hack out a solution. I think what's more applicable is people like Pentaho and other people in the industry who have the expertise and are specialized in that function, who can allow their products to be deployed in that environment and leverage the Amazon advantages, the elastic compute, the storage model, the deployment methodology. That is where I see the sweet spot. So if Pentaho can get to that point, for me, that's much more appealing than looking at Amazon trying to build out something to replace Pentaho X years down the line.
So their challenge, if I can summarize, they got to stay functionally ahead, which they're way ahead now. They got to maintain that lead. They have to curate best of breed, like Spark, for example, from Databricks and other whatever's next, and curate that in a way that is easy to integrate. And then look at the cloud as infrastructure, essentially.
Over the years, these companies have been looking at ways to deploy into a data center easily and efficiently. Now the cloud is the next option. How do they support deployment into the cloud in a way where we can leverage their tool set, but in a way we can leverage the cloud ecosystem? And that's the gap. And I think that's what we look for in companies today, and Pentaho is moving towards that.
And so that's a lot of good advice for Pentaho.
I think so, I hope so, yeah.
Thanks.
If they do that, we'll be happy, so we'll definitely take that.
Is it Pentaho or Pentaho?
You've been saying Pentaho with your British accent, but it is Pentaho, you are, thank you.
Cheap and cheerful, I love it.
I know, that's
Bless your cotton
Britishism.
socks.
Yes.
I've had that conversation
Gordon Bennett.
more than one occasion.
Man, okay. Well, thank you so much, Robert. It's been a lot of fun talking to you.
You're welcome.
We will have more from PentahoWorld, brought to you by Hitachi Vantara, just after this.